But look, there are flower beds here as well. Grandmamara appears on the right and approaches them, but stops short of the flower beds before starting the conversation. You see, Grandmamara never ever shows her feet or legs to the audience. It's because... Well, to start with, why can she shrink and grow at will in the sea? For that matter, why does she even glow? Miyazaki gives a very clear answer in this book. The Wind Returns, second volume. It's a collection of his interviews. In it, Miyazaki reveals that Grandmamara is actually a deep-sea angler fish. So, she's a monster. A huge deep-sea angler fish, about 1 kilometer long. That's the true nature of Grandmamara. And Ponyo is the result of crossbreeding between this huge anglerfish and a male human. So, 2 different species mated and produced an offspring. You can see that in some Japanese folktales, like The Crane Wife and Crane's Return of a Favor, where a human has a child with a non-human. Miyazaki explains that this crossbreeding is essential to the story of Ponyo. He actually looks delighted explaining it, saying they crossbred. She's a deep-sea anglerfish, you know, about 1 kilometer long. So, what is this anglerfish like? I'm sure many of you already know. But here, this is the true nature of Grandmamara. It's a deep-sea fish. It has really sharp teeth, and this antenna protruding from its head emits something called luminescent liquid around its tip. That's why it glows deep in the ocean. The tip right here is actually what we see of Grandmamara. This part takes the form of a woman, and it's connected to the body of this humongous 1 kilometer long, grotesque, deep-sea creature. As I said, Grandmamara is connected to the body of a deep-sea anglerfish. This anglerfish has an antenna that glows in the deep sea, and that's how it lures prey. In the same way, Grandmamara transforms the tip of its antenna into the body of a very beautiful woman in order to lure male humans and crossbreed. Miyazaki explains in the book I mentioned earlier, as well as in other interviews, that Grandmamara has many other husbands besides Fujimoto. This is to say that she is voracious and lecherous. She likes to mate with as many partners as possible. He goes on to say that Ponyo and Grandmamara are like that. Then, where are the other men besides Fujimoto? Are they living in the sea in some corner of the world like him, always longing for a visit by Grandmamara? The answer's probably not. Why? Well, that's to do with the fact that Grandmamara is actually an anglerfish, and how a female and male anglerfish mate is rather peculiar. I got this image from National Geographic. It says the male integrates itself into the female after it bites. So, the male anglerfish embeds itself into the female's body as a parasite, and becomes nothing more than a bump in her body. Its tissues adhere to the female flesh in the process, and will never be detached. So, the male anglerfish becomes a parasite in the female, and will stay this way for the rest of its life. The female anglerfish emits chemicals into the water to lure a male, who is just a fraction of the female in size. And the male depends on these chemicals to find the female. Once it does, the male bites into any part of the female body, and in that instant, its tissues and circulatory system begin to fuse with the female's flesh. From then on, the male receives nutrients from the female's blood, and its eyes and fins and most of its organs start to degenerate and disappear. Eventually, it will only exist as an organ to produce sperm whenever the female is ready to spawn. And this is what makes anglerfish so unique. If Miyazaki took the trouble to make Grandma Mare an anglerfish, it only makes sense to assume that all the other husbands have already been absorbed into her. Then, why hasn't Fujimoto been absorbed yet? According to brochures and books about Ponyo, Fujimoto is a surviving crew member of the submarine Nautilus from the novel 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. In the scene where Fujimoto is extracting what he calls the sea elixir, we see the year 1871 labeled on the oldest urn. So, why just put a specific year on this urn? This specific date on the urn has a connection to what I just said about his setting. The reason for this is because Jules Verne's novel 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea was published in 1870. And it is accounted in the book, which reads like a non-fiction, that the Nautilus sank in the ocean around that time. In that same year, 1870, Grandma Mare supposedly saved Fujimoto, and ever since then, he has been purifying seawater to store up the potion of life. We can assume that he filled up the first urn in 1971. So, Fujimoto used to be a crew member of the submarine Nautilus. Miyazaki has called it a hidden subplot. But he's mentioned this out in the open on so many occasions, so we can trust it to be the case. And that's the reason why Grandma Mare hasn't absorbed Fujimoto yet, because he's been useful to her. Oh, I'm sorry, it was 1871. My bad. So, for Fujimoto, Grandma Mare is his beloved wife, but at the same time, a terrifying figure, because she will probably absorb him once he's no longer useful to her. Supposedly, there are many other husbands, but since we only see Fujimoto making the potion of life, the other men have either died or already been integrated into Grandma Mare's body, which I think is most plausible since Grandma Mare is actually an anglerfish. So, as Fujimoto gets older and is no longer able to work on what he's been doing, he'll probably be absorbed by Grandma Mare. His tissues will adhere to her flesh and finally be integrated into her body. But it's a mystery how Fujimoto will react when that actually happens. Maybe he will be terrified and resistant, but having seen him in the film, I think it may even make him happy.